Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you have been here for a while, you know that this channel is all about making films and animations and learning how to do that so then we can go and make our own films and tell our own stories. If you're new here, consider subscribing because that helps the channel. In this video, I'm going to take you guys through the process that I took to create a cartoon version of a guest that we had for Midway Radio. I'll explain more of that during the video, but for now, let's go ahead and get into the intro.
Since I believe I did involved in one of these episodes about that.
Hey guys, it's Carlos. I'm sitting here cleaning up some audio for a podcast that we did for Midway Radio, and I've learned one thing. I need to stop coming up with such wonderful ideas. See, what we did for Midway Radio is, even though Midway Radio is a video podcast, we found a way to get our guests to call into the show if they can't be on a computer or if they don't have a web camera or whatever. So we found the solution to that problem would be just let the people call in. Well, we took that approach for one of our friends slash guest of the show, Kevin Beecham, of which you saw. I made a drawing of him and I'll leave a link to that up there. So my grand idea was, well, I already have a drawing of Kevin. I might as well just draw all the mouth shapes, bring that file into Character Animator, and then animate his part of the entire conversation. Who knew we were going to be talking for 2 hours? The good thing is I'm bringing you guys with me along this grand idea. First thing I need to do is clean up the audio. There's one bit of good news. I have my part of the audio in a completely separate file, and then everyone else's audio came in all together. So at least I don't have to separate myself. I just have to take 3 other people's conversation and separate them out of Kevin's file. I'm using Adobe Audition, but you can use anything like Audacity, anything that's going to let you edit audio. You can probably even do it in GarageBand, which comes free with the Macintosh. What I'm gonna do is finish cleaning up the audio, and then I'll bring you guys in when I'm drawing his mouth shapes. I'll see you guys when I'm done cleaning this up. And this is the part where I get to brag about having cool friends. See, Ryan Brockmeyer, who is the director of Midway Documentary, is also part of the Midway Radio podcast. And he's going to be editing the podcast. And when I was telling him what I was doing, he suggested doing the lip sync for that one file with everyone's voice on it, and he would cut up everything for the final video, and it would limit how much work I had to do. So thank you, Ryan. Thank you for saving me a couple days worth of work. So now that we have the audio files that we need, let's go ahead and finish up our puppet, so then that way we can bring that into Character Animator. And just to let you guys know, while I was sitting on the couch watching TV, I was using Procreate to create all of the mouth movements, and that's what we're going to take a look at now. Here I am, I'm separating the body from the arms, and then I'm using reference to create the mouth movements, which are neutral, D, E, F, L, M, R, W, O, S, and a smile, and even laughing. And we're towards the end. And now that we got all of the artwork done in Procreate, what I did was sent a PSD from my iPad to my Mac Pro, and then I opened it up in Photoshop and I started labeling everything and putting everything in the right layer order. So let's take a look at that right now. You see here where I have the character name is Kevin Beecham, and if I open that up, I have the head and the body. Those two things need to be separate because the head is going to have its own movement and the body will be affected in movements within Character Animator eventually. But you need to make sure that this folder structure is set up this way. And if you notice that plus sign in front of Kevin's name, the plus sign indicates that this is going to be an independent character or an independent layer or even group of artwork. And let's see what else we can find in here that is going to be independent to further our explanation of independence and everything that works like that in Character Animator. I'm going to open up the body because this body is super simple. It's just the main torso of the body and a right arm. Technically he has a left arm, but I'm not going to move that left arm, so I decided not to draw it at all. So basically what he's going to look like while he's talking in the podcast, he's going to be doing a lot of this, not this. So that's why I just left that left arm just there. It's part of the body. We're not going to use it. Here we go. We see another plus sign right there, right by the right arm. I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and we see here we have all of our hands. We're going to be able to flip through the different hands. So there's a regular hand, open hand, fist the other way. So sometimes you want to do this, sometimes you want to do this. And a finger, and that's all we have. There's not a lot happening. The conversation was super mellow, so there's not a lot of things that are happening that's going to affect his hands, and he doesn't talk a lot with his hands. He's not like me. So the arm, again, the right arm is independent. We see there. The hands will follow the arm wherever the arm goes, and this is the arm background. And if you notice, I don't have a background. I wasn't sure what we were going to do as far as a background, so I asked Ryan for a photo of a record shop or, anything like that. We interviewed Kevin at a store that he has in Minneapolis, and Ryan is trying to dig up some photos for that. The head is a little trickier because we have a lot more moving parts. And what's cool is it's a neat little technique. I have the lenses on a completely different layer. And then that way I can affect the opacity of the lenses. And eventually, like if I wanted to change these glasses to some sunglasses or whatever, all I have to do is create a new layer for the lenses, and then we have sunglasses or whatever the case may be. Here we go. We have the right eyebrow with the plus sign, which means it's independent. And the reason why we want that to be independent is while the face is moving around, our eyebrows can move independently from our face. So that's why we have a plus sign next to those eyebrows. Same thing with the right eye. The eye is a little bit different. We want it to be independent because we don't necessarily need the eyes to move away from the face. But what we are going to do is have blinking action. And so we need the eyes to be independent because we don't need the face to tell the eyes to blink. The camera is going to pick up on the eye blinks, and the camera is going to tell the eyes to then switch to the blinking and then opening back up. We want the eyes to be attached to the face, but the pupils then can move independently from the eyes. That's what the plus sign is for. The mouth itself needs different artwork for the different, and I figured out how to say it, phonemes. We'll just say phonemes. Phoneme makes me feel a little too fancy. I'm from the streets. Phonemes, which is funny because that's not very street either. Let's go with mouth positions. The mouth positions are neutral, D, E, F, L, M, R, W, O, S, smile, and laughing. Okay, so here we are in Character Animator. What I ended up doing was I imported the background, and what I did was grab the background and dragged it down to the timeline. I was able to adjust the sizing by clicking on the actual background layer and then coming over here to the transform. And all I did was, click and drag the Y position and the scale. And I was just able to fit it perfectly however big we needed it. And same thing with Kevin. I imported the PSD. Character Animator knows how to take all that stuff and break everything down into an animatable puppet. This is a very important thing to keep in mind. If you import the PSD into Character Animator and it's not quite working right, and you see things are floating to the side, go back into that PSD in Photoshop. If you do the Command T for the transform handles, you're going to see that it's not going to affect just the lips. It's going to affect the entire canvas. So what you need to do is go back to Photoshop, go through all of the layers, and when you do Control T, you see how I got my handles around his lips. When I first brought this into Photoshop, it was over the entire canvas. So what I had to do is hit V, or you come up here for the move tool, Command or Control click on that layer, and then do Command Shift I or Control Shift I to select the inverse, and then hit delete. When you Command click on the layer, what that does is it selects all of the pixels in that layer. There's something happening when you export a PSD from Procreate and you open it up in Photoshop. It's assuming the entire layer is selectable or transformable. We don't really want that. Command click on that layer, hit Command Shift I, and it's going to select the inverse of the pixels. And if you hit delete, it'll clear everything except the pixels that you basically selected up front. If you import your PSD into Character Animator and you see your puppet is floating all over the place, go back and check those layers. Okay, we're gonna flip back to Character Animator. If you look up here, I have the voice over AIF. AIF is a high quality, non-lossy audio file. To finish up what I was doing here, what I did was drag the background into the timeline, resized it, made it look good. Then I brought the puppet down, and then I went into rig mode. And you see here where if you select the puppet, take a look at these pins. If you come down here, there's this pin tool. And what I wanted to do was I had to pin the bottom of his shirt down, so when I go to move, it doesn't rock back and forth. With those pins, it's basically telling the Character Animator, wherever these pins are, don't move. Just pin it down, don't do anything with it. So now the puppet will move back and forth like this. I also added this bar here as a safety mechanism to keep everything from up, to keep those pixels from being pulled up. You'll notice sometimes when you put a pin down, it'll start getting real janky in some of, like, especially the shoulder and stuff like that. Use pins, but it doesn't mean that that part of the puppet isn't going to be pulled. So when you see pixels being pulled incorrectly while you're moving your puppet around, throw a couple bars down there, you should be fine. Not rat bars. Those are coming later. We have our puppet. I pinned it down. I threw a bar down. You see this little rotation point. A lot of times this will be here, or it'll be kind of wherever it wants to be. I just took it and moved it down here. The right arm, when I first opened this up, it was like over here somewhere. I just put this way up here. You see how the body is turning green? That's basically saying that the arm is attached to the body, but this little circle is the rotation point, and that's where I want the shoulder to rotate from. And again, we see some bars here on the arm. Have you ever seen like rubber hose animation? Like the arm is just basically a noodle, a wet noodle. I don't really want that style of animation for this. I want like a legit bicep and a legit forearm. So I put bars down in there with a gap for the elbow. When you go to move the arm, this part stays straight and the bicep stays straight because of the bar. And if we look down here, we got this little knobby thing here. And what that is this guy here, the dragger tool. So I put the dragger tool on the hand to be able to tell it when I click and drag, that's where I want the drag to start from the hand. And then you'll see when I move the hand, the arm follows the hand. And so that's in rig mode, and I'm going to click on record. There we go. And I'm looking at the web camera right now. You see every time I move my head, his head is going to move, and it affects the body as well. When I blink, it's there. If I wanted to do like a live lip sync, I can turn on lip sync, and now every time I say something, he is going to also say something. And while recording, if I wanted to drag his hand around, I make sure that the dragger is turned on. And now when I drag, now I can move his hand around. And notice how the bicep is nice and straight and the forearm is nice and straight. There's a little weird fold in there. We'll probably mess around with those bars just to make sure that it's fine. Let's do that now actually. Right arm, I'm gonna grab this bar and move it as close to that edge as possible, and same thing with this one here. What happens if we move this way down too? Go back to record, click and drag. Oh, that's way better. Look at that. I'm not gonna sit here and try to lip sync an hour and 40 minutes worth of conversation, especially like we were really going for it. And sometimes we get so excited that we talk so fast and our lips are just moving at 100 miles an hour and all this other stuff, and it's going to be really difficult to lip sync that. We really don't want to do that. So what I did was, after I dragged that AIF file down, the puppet and the background layers were about that long, right? So I need to just grab and pull that all the way to the end of the audio. I clicked on the puppet, went up to timeline, compute lip sync take from scene audio, and that'll take a while. Obviously, depending on how long your audio is, it'll take a while. This one probably took about 6 minutes to do. Once Character Animator was done messing around with the lip syncing, what happens is, if we zoom in real good, I'm gonna scroll to where we have mouth movements. And here we go. If I hit the space bar, and right here he's saying right, but he didn't hit the right? So I'm able to click on here, right click, and drop down to R. So even after Character Animator goes through and makes its lip syncing attempt, we can still go in there and adjust the lip sync mouth positions. Phonemes, damn it, phonemes, mouth positions. So now that we have the puppet set up and we have all of the lip syncing done, what I'm gonna do is use the web camera to act out what I want the puppet to do, and Character Animator is going to automatically record all of my movements that I do with my head, and even my blinking. Character Animator will automatically take my actions and apply it to the puppet. Everything from my head movement to my blinking, and even if I had set up the eyes, even the eyes, the pupil of the eyes would move back and forth, left and right. I'm not gonna have you guys sitting through an hour and 45 minutes worth of podcast just to watch me act out this stuff, but I did create a time lapse. So here you go. And after about an hour and 45 minutes, I was able to get all of this acting done, and I got the puppet looking good, and it looked a little bit like this.
I just give this a comment. That night, I went to I think it was the Q Club. I'm pretty sure it was the Q Club, because Tone B. Nimble had a night there. And Common just so happened to be there. And Common didn't really know who I was. I mean, he had seen me, but he didn't recognize me by name or anything. But I went up to him and I said, "What's up?" And I was like, "Hey, do you know that Ice Cube dissed you?"
And when all those steps are done, you can take a cartoon and animate them and add voices and all that good stuff. You don't necessarily have to be a professional animator to make cartoons. Thank you to Adobe and Adobe Character Animator. When this episode of the podcast comes out, I promise you guys are going to want to check this out, especially if you're fans of hip hop. Kevin has been in the hip hop scene for a very long time and is very respected. And he has a ton of stories. I'll link to that episode once it comes out. Until then, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you know anyone that's looking to get into animation or even animated filmmaking, please send this video on over to them. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, and right next to the subscribe button, like this far away, is the little bell that if you activate that, every time I come out with a new video, you'll be alerted. How much fun is that? That's right. All right, guys, that's it for me. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will see you on the next video.